Man, it's like you can't plan anything. Your friend texts you, was like, right, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be available that month. I might be. But yeah, I can't plan anything. I'm
No.
sorry, I can't give you any. Maybe I'll let you know like a week before this holiday that you want to go on. And that just doesn't work. That just can't work.
This is not FPL. This is a major. Debris is like sweating bullets. Oh, Fallen, stop blowing my mind.
The man can do no wrong. One of the greats.
The following conversation is with Adam Dinko Hawthorne, who in my eyes is the fastest growing commentator across first-person shooters, both in his craft and in popularity. This year alone, he's casted some of the biggest events in Counter-Strike and VALORANT, and I brought him onto the show to find out what he feels about commentating both of these titles. Without any further ado, this is Dinko. This has definitely been, at least in my eyes, one of your biggest, if not the biggest, year for you in esports. I think you've attracted a lot of eyes, might I say ears, in a way, this year, especially in CS, right? I'd consider you now as like one of the mainstream figures in competitive Counter-Strike. So I kind of want to hear it from you. Like, what was a highlight for you this year?
Yeah, I mean, thanks very much for all the kind words, first of all. But yeah, I would say probably getting Katowice. There we go, camera went off. Katowice at the start of the year was pretty unexpected and definitely a highlight for me, because obviously it's one of the biggest events of the year. It's one that you really want to work. Everybody kind of wants to work that, and for me it was really unexpected. I wasn't meant to be working the event, and Machine had a few issues, and so I stepped in. So it was very unexpected, and from that point onwards, it kind of all spirals for the rest of the year. So that definitely has to be the highlight, I guess, because it started everything else.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, what I also noticed, like, essentially for this year for you, it's been filled to the brim with LANs. Like, you've had a ton of LANs,
yes,
right? Audience as well. And considering, like, your background, you've done a lot of online casting, and now you've kind of jumped in and kind of done by a majority. I don't know if it's by a majority, but by quite a bit, you've definitely increased the amount that you've done LANs, right, with an audience. So
yeah.
Do you think that has changed, like, your casting style at all? I know we're jumping straight away in the technical parts of casting, but this is what the show's about. So
yeah. I'd say when you're coming into the crowd, I actually only did like one proper arena this year, so that was like my first ever proper arena cast. So it was pretty cool. I mean, as a caster, I'm sure you're the same. It's like you kind of just sit there, even though you're casting online all the time, you're doing group stages from the studio. You're always kind of thinking about the moment you get to do it in an arena. So you're not going into it and then just learning on the fly. You've kind of already studied how you would do it and how you would do that moment. And so you go in, and I feel like because you envision it a lot, you're actually a lot more prepared for that style of arena cast more than you would be if you were just going in and learning on the fly. So it wasn't too daunting for me, like, going into that. I was actually quite confident. I think the fact that I casted with, Moses for a lot of those playoff games, and also I did it again with Yanko, which actually was really cool and had like a very different style than I'm used to. So that was really cool. But yeah, I think this year definitely has allowed me to increase my understanding of different styles, because I've worked with so many different color commentators throughout the year. So I definitely have learned quite a few styles, I would say, of casting, and definitely doing the LANs helps that, because obviously I'm working with different people, different environments all the time. So yeah, absolutely.
So I'd like to unpack at least the first part of your answer there. You said you obviously approached it beforehand. You've kind of came in prepared and had an idea of how you wanted to approach it. What did that preparation look like?
Well, it's just kind of in your head. Over the years, you're just watching arenas. You're watching like the biggest moments, and that's kind of something that's very inspiring for a lot of casters. So for me, it's like I watched all the old guys doing their casts in the arena, learning for like little details. They do differences from the group stages to the playoffs. So you use a lot more dead air. You would play off the crowd a little bit more. You have to take it to another level, which means that you also have to try and drop a level when you're in the group stages. Like, you can't get overhyped about certain things. You have to really reserve that so you can see the difference, or hear the difference rather, when you go into the arena, into the playoffs. You would sound a little different, a little bit more hype. You could ramp it up a bit, and I think that's where the differences come in. And I think I looked at how to play the sound off when you're in a quiet part of the round, for example. You can actually just leave it completely. You don't have to actually talk. Whereas in a group stage, you're a lot more responsible for your sound. Whereas if you're in an arena, the audience can kind of leave a little bit of a rumble going on in the background. So you can kind of leave that there a little bit and use more dead air throughout it. So yeah, there's differences, absolutely. I feel like it's it's the most satisfying way to cast is in the arena, because every moment is genuine and you don't really have to force it. You know, the play will just do itself basically, and you just add your voice to it. Whereas group stages, I think you have to be a little bit more responsible for making sure the viewers will stay entertained, or for the sound, because there's no one really there assisting you.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, I kind of get the idea of like, you know, leaving dead air and allowing the crowd to like build a lot of the suspense, or kind of you know, give a break to the rest. Well, get rid of the noise or the unnecessary things. And I think it might tie into a little bit with traditional sports, you know.
Yes.
A lot of that casting is very, you know, slow-paced. Only necessary words or phrases are used, and there's no, like, constant commentary going on. Have you found influence for maybe traditional sports and kind of looking at that, or is this mostly like completely from what other esports casting pros have done in the past?
No, I've definitely taken a lot from sports. I think about people who don't really look at sports are kind of really hindering themselves, because, you know, okay, yeah, our industries are different. You want to be different, but there is a lot of similarities. And these guys have worked broadcast careers for 50 years, or
yeah,
you know, the industry is so old over in traditional sports. So a lot of it is too tied up for esports, but you're going to be able to take a lot from sports in the history and why they do things. And obviously people that have done it for a longer period of time understand what works and how to work things out. So for me, yeah, I've gone back. I've looked at a lot of old commentators, read a lot of old books about esports sports commentary, and applied some of the theories into esports. Obviously, a lot of it is kind of irrelevant to esports, because it's very. I think in esports it's kind of strange, because in sports they break it up into in play-by-play alone. They break it up into radio commentary and television. Obviously, we don't have radio, but the weird thing is the radio commentary is more descriptive overall, because obviously there's no visual for the viewer. So you're sitting there, you have to be a little bit more descriptive of things happening in front of you. But what I think is interesting is in esports, I think we use radio style commentary over a visual product. And that is something that is interesting, because I don't think if we did a television style broadcast for like sports, it wouldn't really work, because there's so much happening all the time. So you actually have to be really descriptive. So it's almost radio-like over a visual product, which is kind of a unique thing that I don't think anybody's had to do in the past.
That's something really interesting, because I've recently looked in you know, Greek commentary, and that, you know, Greek commentary hasn't developed as much as like other casting languages have, like Spanish, for example, like Finnish. You know, you've got like clear, distinct styles of how that commentary is carried out, and often it shares, you know, the sports way of commentary. Which I guess you can see there's a contrast with the English commentary, because there's quite a difference between, you know, sports and esports. And I've been thinking, you know, maybe the way to commentate for some specific languages, like for example Greek, would be, you know, taking it, being a little bit of a television broadcast style, where you don't say everything, just the necessities, and yeah, so that's kind of interesting to kind of look at. But another thing I think also is interesting about this is for newer commentators, right? They kind of try and say everything, right? They kind of try and pick out what's going on, whether they're speaking fast or they're getting overwhelmed by all of the action. They don't quite pick out the important parts, or try and paint a narrative throughout their play-by-play. How have you been approaching that? How's that kind of developed for you? Have you noticed yourself trying to, you know, have more storyline-driven play-by-play over the years?
I think, you know, when you look at it, it kind of depends on who you're commentating with too. I think in Valorant, for example, I work with Ryan, who is quite new to the commentary role. He's more of an analyst, right? So when he comes in, he's very analytical, and so what I like to do is, he's obviously a lot more knowledgeable about the game. So what I'll do is just let him have all of the analysis segments, but let him really go in depth about the technicals of the game. And therefore, there's so much happening in a Valorant game, for example, that Ryan can't really afford to do this in-depth analysis and then do a storyline on top of that, because he'd just be talking all the time, or he'd be fumbling, or it would all just be mismatched, right? So then I would take the storyline in that respect, right? And I would drive the narratives home. And you do that by obviously trying to tie in the narratives based on what he's bringing up with the technicals inside of the game. So that's how I would do it if I'm working with someone like him. But if I'm working with someone that's a little bit more versed in the commentary field, that can do a bit of play-by-play that isn't going to have to be as structured, for example, then you can kind of mix and match a little bit and have a discussion about the game together, a little bit more back and forth, and then storylines. So definitely depends on the person you're working with too. But over the years, I definitely have realized that you have to not say what you see all the time, but kind of see what the storyline is progressing through the round from a tactical perspective, and then also from the storyline of the whole game. And obviously that takes some time. And I think you're right. A lot of new casters come in and they just cast literally everything. Most of the time they actually say so much without saying anything at all.
Yeah.
You know, and you just cast the kill feed, and then they just say where they're going on the map. Like there's nothing here that you're adding at all. Just adding an overhyped kind of sometimes annoying commentary because it's like you're getting distracted from everything that's actually happening here with not really getting anything. So yeah, that's definitely something you have to think about, is actually saying what is happening, not, you know, just like describing different outcomes, etc. too, of the round, instead of just saying exactly what's happening on your screen all the time at that moment, because people can see that. You know, people can already see that. They need you to describe why.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would want to nail down here, right? The role of the play-by-play, because you obviously, you know, love the play-by-play role, and you've kind of stuck with it for the longest time.
Yes.
You know, so yeah, that's kind of what I want to, you know, extrapolate out of this is, you know, the play-by-play's role isn't to just cover the action and just talk about, you know, what is going on the screen. It's actually making sure the most important things are mentioned within the context of the entire round, if not the entire game, if not like even further back, you know, bringing some history into the match by making characterizations, right? So yeah, that's kind of something that I wanted to bring up here. But you did mention Ryan for a second there, which also is kind of a reference to the Valorant you've done this year, right? As well as last year, right? You started doing Valorant last year as well.
Yes, I think, I did. Yeah, I did a few events last year, and then I did. I think I even did one in like 2020 as well. But yeah, but definitely more so this year towards the start of the year.
So I kind of want to touch up on the styles that Counter-Strike and Valorant have, the difference within them, because they're obviously like first-person shooters. They're both tactical shooters, actually, to be more precise. You know, there's a clear correlation within the theme of those games, but they don't exactly cast the same. So I kind of want to hear your opinion on, you know, if you found any, you know, tangible differences between the two.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't deny the similarities in the game, right? The objective is the same. The map layouts are somewhat similar. I'd say Valorant obviously has a lot of quirks, but you know, you have a lot of similarities, a lot of different terms, a lot of the same terms rather. And so what is different is the utility, and the utility makes or breaks the game, right? That's what changes the game, is how utility is used to move across the map. And in Valorant, it's also spawns are different. So it's very different in terms of Valorant. When they're at their spawns, you kind of can already see the round that's happening. So you kind of already understand what kind of play they want to go for, unless they're just defaulting, right? If they change it up, they're going for a set piece. You can look at their ultimates available. You can look at what utility they have available, and you can somewhat assume from their positions what kind of play they're likely going to make, whether, you know, just from your own game knowledge or seeing from previous games before, right? You can see what they like to do. So for me, that's time where the color commentator must speak, because when the barriers go down, you immediately have a lot of fights coming through a lot of the time, right? Or the execute already starts rolling. So you can, that's where the play-by-play should then take over. And I think the color commentator gets very little time in a Valorant cast in comparison to CS to actually talk about the game. So the crucial time before the barriers go down and immediately after the round is over, that is sacred time for the color commentator. Obviously, you can have a bit of a quicker back and forth in the play-by-play moments, you know, whether the retake's happening or you're in the clutch scenario and you have a little bit of time before the engagement happens. Obviously, that's time where you can sprinkle in the color commentator for some context. But the difference for me from the play-by-play perspective is you have to be a lot more cognizant of the fact that your color commentator doesn't have a lot of time. So you need to be very gracious in terms of you have to hand off very quickly. You have to be able to be aware in those play-by-play moments to actually give them some time if they want to sprinkle some context in. But then the most frustrating thing is when you are a play-by-play commentator and you hand off for that little tidbit, and then the color commentator overspeaks, and then they're involved in the play-by-play, and then by the time the round finishes, they finish what they've had to say, and then you're just sitting there waiting to do a color analysis of the round, which isn't your job. So that can be a bit frustrating. So you kind of have to nail that down with your co-commentator. I seem to have lost my feed. But, that happens a lot in the online era too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm kind of used to that one. That's definitely another problem because Valorant mostly was online cast.
Very true.
So that's a different style too, and I'm sure you're aware of that. You know, it's a bit harder to actually have some of this back and forth handoffs, or like when the color commentator is over speaking to, you know, tell them with a hand signal, like, time to hand off to me, try give it back, you know.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a different style, and I think Valorant is a little bit more structured in my opinion when it comes to that. So for the CS side of things, it's a lot of downtime in between the rounds where you can actually have a bit of back and forth with the casters. The play-by-play commentator obviously gets some of the biggest payoffs, I think, because in CS, everyone has the same utility. Everyone is given the same chance to frag. Obviously, that isn't true because there's different positions. Like you have different roles in the teams, but you know, on paper, you know, you all have the same utility set. There's no ultimate that's going to allow you to kill this person, right? So it's down to the skill of the individual, and I think that human element in play-by-play casting in CS, when someone pulls off a 1 versus 3 or 4 or 5, that's incredible for me. Like that's one of the biggest payoffs because you can understand like it's kind of on equal terms here, and the only difference in this scenario is how much better this person is at this video game than you, right? So that to me is a really good payoff in CS, and that the style is a lot more back and forth, and you can have a lot more context in the color commentator, and you can kind of allow them to sometimes take a bit of play-by-play because the early kills in the round don't matter as much. And I think Valorant, it really does matter because the utility, only one person, well, two, a lot of the time there's only like one agent that has smokes on the server. So it's like you lose that player, well, you got no smokes now. So your round's basically screwed. So that's where every kill kind of matters a bit more in Valorant, I think, too. So that there's a lot of different styles there, but a lot of it plays pretty similar.
Would you say that Counter-Strike is a little bit more creative in regards to commentary, that you can take, you can probably pull off a lot of different commentary styles, you know, with Counter-Strike rather than Valorant?
It's an interesting question because Valorant is, as I said, I think personally for my style, you need to be a little bit more structured.
Yeah.
But if you have more of a hybrid duo, I think there's a couple of different styles you can rock in Valorant for sure. But I don't know. I feel like the most exciting thing about Valorant is the utility for me. It's just awesome, right? So you have, I feel like you have to have someone on the cast that really understands like the intricacies of what they're doing, and explain that throughout the cast. So I'd say in CS there's a lot of opportunities, to have like different styles because the games are a bit longer too. The rounds can be a bit slower. There's a lot of history too in the game, so you can call back, as you mentioned, to the history. So yeah, there's a lot of different styles in CS. And I think it's just we've had a long time in CS to try and figure that out as well. Whereas Valorant is like, I'm sure you're aware, it's just hyper competitive. So everyone is just, a lot of the people are doing the same shit, right? So that's the one thing is like a lot of the casters are kind of doing a very similar style. I'd say I like what Sideshow and Brand have done. I think they bring a little bit of a unique style to it. Tom and Mitch obviously as well. They're not really like a structured duo where there's not really like a clear color commentator in their duo. Like Mitch definitely is the play-by-play, but he's also pretty analytical. You know, he'll bring up a lot of points, etc. He won't leave that fully to Tom. So you have this like little back and forth. I think they're pretty similar actually. I think Tom's quite capable of doing play-by-play too. So you have a unique style there. And I think CS it's hard to call, man, because Valorant's so young. But I think CS right now definitely has more unique styles, I would say, overall.
I love that you're just jumping into my next questions here. This is awesome. You're right. Valorant is young, and you know, for its span so far, it's kind of been visible to me that there hasn't been like a clear style, like it hasn't found its identity. While Counter-Strike, on the other hand, you know, has had its identity for quite some time, and it's also kind of, you know, progressed and developed, right? You know, the style that you see Machine and Sponge doing now, you know, who I'd say, you know, at the top of their game, and at the top of casting game in Counter-Strike now. If you look at the best commentary in 2015, for example, it looked nothing like it, right? So I want to hear your thoughts a little bit in regards to, you know, Valorant building its style, but also Counter-Strike. How does that tie in together? You know, how can you borrow elements off of that to Valorant maybe?
Yeah. The thing is for CS, I think you're right in terms of the casting back in 2015 versus now is very different. I think it's better now. By a good margin. And casting with Sponge at the start of the year, you kind of notice something is like it's just basically like learning CS as you're casting, because he just talks you through Counter-Strike like just perfectly. You know, he knows the kind of play is going to happen. You can talk you through why they're doing this, what the decision, what options are available to them, and that only comes because he's an incredibly intelligent person about the game, right? He's an ex-player, ex-analyst. You know, he's done all of this. He's played it for years. I mean, this is only possible because he's retired from his playing career and is now a commentator, but he's not even just going into casting. He's also been on the desk for years and then into casting, and so he understands what's needed from the broadcast, and he's worked with the best play-by-plays, and now he's fine-tuned it. And so for me, that's something that Valorant can't do, because Chad was retired like 5 years before Valorant, or 6 years before Valorant even came out, right? So this is something that just isn't possible just yet in Valorant. So you don't have like that ex-player from Valorant that understands but because also the meta changes so much too, it's kind of hard. But I'd say you can't really have that unique style. I think that's something that CS can only really have at the moment because of the history of the game. Like having an ex-player retire, and there's so many options like that. You know, like Moses, actually, a lot of people don't know, but he used to be a player too back in an older version of CS, so he has playing experience. But he's definitely more hybrid as well. He likes to do a bit of play-by-play.
Yeah.
And then there's Harry and Hugo, who neither of them have any playing history, right? But they've come in and they're just hilarious, right? They have such a good synergy. They're funny. They have, and that's something that goes for them, right? They're able to be funny, but they've also proven recently that they can do it in the arena too. They can kind of switch it on and do a different style. So, yeah, I'd say that there is more creativity, and because of the different options you can have with the styles, and Valorant can definitely learn from that too. I mean, you can definitely look into the different styles. If you're a duo that don't really have a lot of expertise, for example, then you can be a little bit more lean into the entertainment style, a little bit more like Harry and Hugo, and try and be a more entertaining duo, but also have the gravitas to pull off a big game. Whereas if you're a really talented play-by-play commentator, and then you attach yourself to someone who's really smart about the game, but maybe doesn't have the best presentation, then you can kind of work together and figure out that style too. You take all the play-by-play, take all the moments, and be a lot more structured, and let them break it down Barney style about the game. So there is definitely a lot of styles, similarities you can take, some of which you can't take yet, but certainly down the line you will be able to pull some ex-players off of the server and get them into casts too. And hopefully they can articulate their points, because there's a lot of players that retire and try to be casters and suck. So you have to try and find the ones that are often native English speakers. That's the unfortunate thing for the broadcast. And then also, or someone that's very proficient in it, and then someone that can articulate their points, because a lot of pro players come off the server and then into the broadcast, and they just don't know how to get their point across. So yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, 100%. You know, Valorant still's got a future. You know, you can still develop.
Exactly, yeah.
And I'm sure it will develop quite a bit. It's very young. But yeah, you are one of like the few, I think, well-established CS:GO commentators that kind of not converted, I'd say, have tried to enter Valorant a bit, try and do a bit of commentary on the tier 1 scene. Why do you think others didn't?
I think it's just so much on in CS, right? It's really hard to keep up with a game like Valorant, where literally if you take 2 months off, the game changes quite a bit, right? There's another agent in the game. The map pool has changed. The meta's changed. There's so many changes to the abilities and how they work. players have changed, teams have changed, so storylines are different.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't really afford to take too much time off, and if you do, well, you've got to come back and really hard prepare. I mean, I took a little time out from Valorant. I worked in the season 2. Last time I worked was in June. I'm doing an upcoming event in the off season here with the Red Bull tournament, and it's like the amount of games I've had to watch and study and play, and then read all of the articles, all the changes, watch how those different players have kind of slotted in, how the different styles of the new players will likely make the team play. You know, this is something you just got to do. There's so many changes from 6 months ago to now that, you know, you really have to do a lot of research, a lot of digging, and it's really tiresome to deal with that and keep up with your other game too. So I'd say they could come across, but they'd be disingenuous. They wouldn't really do a good enough job, right, in their own head, and they wouldn't want to do that, and they have no reason to, really. So that's probably why. And I think people like Mitch and Tom who have come over from CS, obviously they will have used their skills from CS early on, and then they developed their own style in Valorant, and they didn't really have, you know, Mitch, for example, is way bigger now in Valorant than he ever was in CS, right? Yeah. And I think he realized that if he wanted to be like a tier 1 caster in an esport, he probably had to make the switch because there were so many people in front of him in CS that it was just not worth it. So moving to Valorant is a way for him to kind of get to the top, and he did that really, really quickly, actually. So yeah, props to him, but that's probably why.
Yeah. And also catching that first wave, you know, after that it becomes a little bit more difficult, because then Valorant has, you know, tying it back to the style that we were talking about earlier, you know, Valorant will probably be adopting a different style of commentary and trying to keep up with that. You know, I'm sure there'll be ways to convert. You know, you've got so many years of experience in your belt, under your belt, like in a different genre, in a different game, different title. You can probably make the switch, but you know, it's a bit. The more you wait, the longer it gets. The more difficult it becomes, I guess.
Also, I don't think everybody just has to move, you know. Both. No. I think that there's this sort of mentality of like you should hit the other one. It's like, why is this a thing? You know, I enjoy both, and so I would kind of want to work on both. Yeah. And it's okay to have a preference, absolutely, but you know, the other, it's not like Harry Potter. You know, both can live. One does not have to die. You know, so you know, you have this scenario where it's, you know, Valorant's pretty healthy right now. It's a very healthy growing period. You know, you're going into the franchises. We'll see how that goes next year. I'm sure, I have every faith that it'll be solid. But, you know, you're going to see a lot of talent change up and through the years. I mean, look at League of Legends when they went to franchise. Look how many different guest stars they have in. Someone's going to come in and really impress Riot. And you're going to have people come in and out and change and maybe change region. You know, it's very early on. And you have to kind of look at it a long term. Like, you don't have to leave your esport to go here. You don't have to do it. You can, if you can do both, that's awesome. And it is definitely difficult to do both. And you'll never be the best in Valorant if you're not doing it single-handedly, right? If you can't just go into Valorant and just be, you know, I'll come in every now and then and do a bit, but you have to very fully commit to it. And I don't think a lot of people strive to be the best in esports. You have this sort of idea that you want to be at the top, and so if you have no chance of being at the top, then there's no point for a lot of people. So that's kind of why I think you don't have to make the switch, and I don't think a lot of people will. I think there's so many talent members now in Valorant that you can have your own pool. You don't need to take from other esports anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. What would you want to do, though? In that regard?
What I want to do?
In regards to Valorant, Counter-Strike? Where's your head at?
It's a tough one because obviously this is quite important. But right now, I'm not established enough in Valorant to feel comfortable of moving. So I'm happy at the moment with where I'm at doing both. But yeah, I mean, there was times where I was looking at switching fully, and there was a couple of windows, but it didn't really like pan out. So I mean, I'm in a good place in CS. Last year, I'll be honest, like November 2021, I didn't really feel too good about the next year of CS. So I was definitely looking at more in Valorant, but my career kind of changed in CS, and I'm in a far stronger position than I thought I would ever be in. So that is definitely something that's I'm pretty happy about, because it was like the first esport I fell in love with, right? So I mean, I don't really mind either way, you know, like if I do CS for a year and I'm in a good position and next year looks great, awesome, and Valorant want to pick me up in the off season, or I do a couple of seasons here or there, I'd love to do that. Or CS, don't hire me and Valorant only hired me for a few things, you know, well, I'd obviously focus more in on whoever's hiring me at the time. So that's where I'm at. I like both esports, but right now I'm getting more work in CS. So there you go.
Put. Very well put. At least in my eyes, it seems like Counter-Strike is trying its darn best to keep you there right now, especially this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at a pretty good spot where it's like, yeah, I mean, I've worked with literally every color commentator, I think, this year. So I've got a lot of options, I think, but you never really know. Like in esports, you don't know, Pavlos. No. It's like, yeah, I feel pretty good about next year, but I might like January comes around, I might not get anything, and then I'm like, oh shit, well, my whole plans for next year have changed. That's happened a few times actually, where you think it's going a certain way, and then it goes a different way, and then you have to try and adapt to it. And I think that's the most important thing about esports casting is if you're gonna do this and you're a freelancer, well, you got to be able to stick with mental health going like up and down constantly. You're like suddenly you're on top and then you're the smallest person ever, then you're on top and then you're small again. Your finances are great one month and zero the next month. So you have to really deal with the ups and downs of the industry, and persistence is certainly key when it comes to that. And you know, I try and adopt the mentality of like, well, it's worked out every other time, don't worry, but it doesn't work like that. Your brain just it doesn't work like that. You worry anyway. Everyone does. So
you do.
Yeah.
I mean, look, shouting at pixels for a living sounds fucking amazing, right? You know, it's an awesome job.
It is.
and it is amazing, right? It's a dream job, right? Yeah, but there are obviously things that other people don't see behind the scenes. And you just touched upon it, and I'm just curious for you. What do you think was your biggest struggle working in this industry, especially as a commentator, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like just the fact that sometimes you get promised things or you feel like you're in, and then it doesn't work out, and having to deal with the disappointment in those scenarios is pretty hard, you know. So it's like, say you think you're getting a big event and then suddenly that event rocks out and you didn't get picked up for it, or you feel like you've done everything you could to deserve that, but you don't get it because there's another 4 good people in front of you, or people that have more history, loyalty to companies, etc. And so sometimes your reputation lags behind your ability. And I think it's cool to just kind of realize, okay, I'll sit back and I'll learn from this and see what I need to improve on. What do I need to do better than this person to deserve their spot? So for me, it's like that's definitely the toughest thing, is the disappointment sometimes of not getting events, but it's just part of the game, really. That's part of the job. And as long as you're not going on Twitter and complaining about it, you know, a lot of people do that, and it's really not smart to do that. You will have bad months, you will have bad patches throughout your career, but as long as you're pragmatic about it and you keep working towards it, and you have to keep finding ways to get involved until there is no ways left. And if there is no ways left, well, do something else, because or wait, or like get something on the side, you know, and then it'll come around again. You'll get another opportunity. You just have to keep trying to take the opportunities in front of you, because you never really know like what's around the corner next month. You know, someone could come along and suddenly someone who's retired is back in the game, or or you get another opportunity, or someone comes back and they want to work with you, and that could open up your career. So you just have to always try and be available. Don't burn your bridges. So that probably is for me like the biggest struggle, is just sitting back sometimes and letting things pan out, because it's not an immediate thing, and that I kind of hate that I don't have control over everything. I kind of like to control my own destiny, but sometimes you can't. So you just have to wait sometimes.
Yeah, it's just life, you know. I think it's also, you know, this modern era of, you know, job security and this and that, and working in esports and commentary maybe in particular is something completely unorthodox. You know, so it takes a while for the system to understand it, for yourself to get used to it, especially when you compare yourself with your peers, you know. As in peers, I mean people of your own age and the same generation as you, not in like commentators as well, because you differ, right? Your lives are different, and maybe they clash, and you know, you work on weekends and you can't hang out with them, and you know, you'll miss birthdays, you'll miss occasions because you're out traveling in a different part of the world for work.
Yeah, man, it's like you can't plan anything, you know, your friend texts you, was like, right, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be available that month. I might be. But yeah, I can't plan anything. I'm sorry, I can't give you any. Maybe I'll let you know like a week before this holiday that you want to go on. And that just doesn't work. You know, that just can't work. And even like the simplest things, I was doing the We Play Academy League a few weeks ago, and Henry and I were casting that together. And so we were sitting there, and it's like, I got a text from my friend asking if I was available to go out after, and I'm like, well, I don't really know. It could be like 2 hours, maybe 3, but there is a lot of tech delays today, so maybe like 4. You know, I'll see you at some point. You know, and Henry, and then after I said that to Henry, and he goes, "I've had the exact same thing. You know, might see you after this, might not. Bar might be closed before this is over. You know, that kind of thing. So it is quite hard, but it's worth the sacrifice, and every single time for sure. And I think that's another interesting thing is that you mentioned peers. There's very few of them in terms of people that understand your lifestyle. And I think you end up actually becoming really good friends with your direct competitors, which are your fellow broadcast talent. And that's a very strange dynamic because you're all aware that you're kind of competing against each other for jobs. But a lot of the time, well, in Counter-Strike at the moment, everybody's getting along really well. And that's awesome. I think we're all really good friends, actually great friends. We'll go on holidays with each other. We'll meet up outside of events, etc. When we're at events, we'll hang out all the time. It's just great fun. It's like traveling the world with your best friends. It's really cool. And you can kind of relate to each other because it's like the complaints you have. Everyone in the world will complain about their career at some point, right? It just happens. So when you complain to someone at home, one of your friends at home that's not getting to travel the world and not getting as paid as much as you, and when you complain, you just look like a dick, right? So there is stuff to complain about, certainly.
There always is.
but you can complain with your peers, and that is something that that venting moment is really important. And you quite often find that the only people you can sort of do that with is people that are doing the same job as you. So that is something that is very important and very unique, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely that is something to.
Like you literally mentioning this just now just makes me feel a little bit calmer about something that literally just happened yesterday to me, right? I literally sent out invites to a party I'm doing because I'm moving out from the country, and an event popped up that exact weekend, and I'm like, well, okay, never mind, cancel all the invites.
Sorry,
it's
guys,
happening another time.
Cancelled.
Exactly. So yeah, these things definitely happen. And yeah, you mentioned that you're working in the same space as probably your best friends, right? You're good friends with Harry, Hugo. You know, you've done quite a lot with them. You know, either events or I saw a podcast you recently did with Tech Girl as well. You're talking about how you play games with them a lot as well.
Oh yeah, like pretty much the day when we're at events. You know, it's not even just Harry, Hugo. It's literally everyone, you know, like Machine, everybody, like we're all hanging out, and it's a really cool environment. So it's like you just sit and you work all day together, then you go home and you at the hotel you either eat a meal together or you play games, because the ESL is pretty cool right now. They give you like PC setup, so we all just play games like constantly in this huge facility. So it's like you do that, and then as soon as we're going home, it's like you sit down and you play games again. So it's really important, I think, to do that too, because you kind of learn from each other when you're constantly talking to other people doing the job. Everyone has that sort of internal discussion with each other, like how can we get better in your own head, right? You're like, how can I improve? And so a lot of thoughts go flying when you start to talk to them all the time. You're getting like a lot out of people, and you don't really even realize you're doing it, but you have different perspectives of the job. And so you actually improve at your job while you're talking to so many different people, just having fun. So that's another important thing I would say for casting too, is it's not even just in the actual booth when you're casting. It's actually like outside of it. You kind of have to make it your identity as a commentator, because your whole lifestyle can sometimes kind of lean into it, and it has to become like somewhat of an obsession. For me personally, I think to really become one of the best, it has to be verging on obsession, really, to get to a good position.
Yeah. You've got to be obsessed. You've got to be crazy about it, man.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of people in our industry that have like attention deficit disorder is like, it's actually a superpower, I think, for a lot of people. It's like you can actually just hone in and focus on this one thing all the time. And it's like for a lot of people when you're casting, they're like, when you lose attention, it goes away when you're casting, because you're just focused on the game alone. And it's something that's a very unique experience. And I think people find that somewhat addicting. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of, I think you'll notice that a lot when you talk to other people that are doing this job, or even the players, for example. It's pretty similar for those guys too.
you've all got to be like incredibly passionate, and that's why you often find a lot of like-minded people in esports, because you know it's definitely not traditional. It's definitely not anything easy. It's definitely something that you really need to get out of your way to achieve it, achieve like greatness out of it as well. So yeah, you'll see a lot of crazy and passionate people in this scene. But at the same time, that's awesome, because that's, you know, they're awesome characters. So, you know, it makes sense that people within esports get along with each other, you know.
Yeah, and then sometimes obviously they don't, and there's a lot of famous stories with that too.
There is, because you know you've got passionate people. There's always going to be clashes as well. There's that side of
personalities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to be in camera, right? As well, like
exactly.
Be as humble as you want about it. You always want to be, you know, a big part of the attention. You know, as humble as you want to be.
For sure.
It's part of the job. So yeah. It's
you look out
hard.
for your own self-interest for sure. You know, when it comes to it, you're always going to do that, even if it is over your friend. So, I mean, you would do what you can for other people. You'll be a good person, but obviously, sometimes you just got to look out for yourself too. So,
sure.
But some people don't even consider the good person bit, and they just screw everybody over, which doesn't work. You know, that actually ends up costing you down the line.
Does.
So you gotta. There's a lot of politics, that's for sure. I mean, there is politics. That's something you gotta work with, but you can do it in a fun way, at least.
Yeah, you can. All right, man. I kind of want to dive into people you look up to. Like, obviously, we all have examples of people that we follow, whether that is learning their craft, whether that's the way they behave, or in any sort of shape or form. Do you have any heroes in that sense? Do you have any people you look up to in the scene that you've been, you know, studying a bit?
Well, I would certainly say I have inspiration. And I think, you know, everyone has something you can learn from. And I'll go back to traditional sports. For me, the person that I love watching, I think is one of the best commentators in the world, is the UFC lead play-by-play, John Anik. I think he's really solid in terms of his ability to not mess up. He just always perfect with his words, and you never really hear him say the wrong thing. He doesn't make mistakes. He's a human being for sure, but I think his presentation is just incredible. And for me, he's someone you can really learn from. And also, it's quite interesting because this is something that I'll give a little tidbit here, but it's like UFC do like 8-hour events a day, right? So like we're pretty similar in the respect of we have sometimes got super long days. So most sports, like football, for example, the commentators are on for like an hour and a half, right? And they do and they don't even really work that hard, like in terms of expending energy. So UFC, it's like you have to balance yourself across the whole fight card. And so for me, you kind of learn something from esports in that respect of like how to pace yourself. Because you start with the smallest fight, it still takes hours to get up to the main event, and then you also have to be able to deliver that main event in a solid way. So that for me is like something I've taken inspiration from for sure. And then esports, I'd say I like Sadikist. Obviously, is one of the best technical commentators. You'll never be able to take that away from him. The moments he's been able to deliver are incredible. So you kind of learn a little bit about his pacing. I'd say his in-game knowledge isn't like the best, but it does make up for the fact that he is like incredibly gifted as a technical commentator. And then I would say Pansy also has really good pacing, so that's something I take something from. I think Scrawny has a really good sound. Harry has like a really good charisma, I'd say, on broadcast. You can take a little bit of something from that. And Machine is just like the ultimate storyteller, narrative weaving wizard. So for me, you could take like a lot from all of these people. And then Call of Duty League, I think Maven as well is like incredibly talented with the sound he has. And I don't even watch COD, but I know that I just like the sound of him. When I seen him on a clip one day, I was like, I'll go and listen and see what he's got. So for me, I just take a lot from loads of different people. I think Bardolph is just a very unique commentator, but you listen to the words he says and like he never really misspeaks. So it's actually really solid stuff over there too from Bardolph. And I think that's kind of the people mainly that I've taken some inspiration from overall. So yeah, definitely those guys. Like everyone has something to learn from.
Is there an aspect of commentary that you value most?
Yeah, the most important aspect is doing justice to the players, because you're kind of, as a commentator, my philosophy is you're the gateway between the viewer and the player. And that means you are the tool to which the viewer will understand what the player is doing. And so I come in and with the knowledge of the game you need to be able to work with your co-commentator to tell the viewer how incredible the person you're watching doing this activity is. Or in a lot of cases, how shit they're doing. So that's another thing, right? And it's like that's something that some commentators don't do. Like newer commentators will never criticize a player, or they completely overhype a play, and it's like, well, guys, you're kind of actually not doing justice to the player here at all. You know, you're just kind of overhyping something that they do every single day that's not incredible. Like, this means when the incredible thing does happen, there's no difference between something they do every day versus something that happens once in a year or 2 years or never happened before. So you have to leave some in the tank for that. And like it just ties into loads of different things. I think that's a great umbrella term for so many different things. It's like doing justice to the player, because also then you have to understand the meta of the game to understand what the details they're doing. Because if you miss everything, then you don't give that to the viewer, and then they don't understand. So the player's missing out on some credit where credit's due in terms of they put their whole life into it, and you have to try and keep up and understand and be able to deliver that in a nice package in so many different ways. It's not just one way. So for me, the most important aspect of being a caster is definitely doing justice to the player on the server and not making a show about yourself, which a lot of people do. So that is obviously something that will happen. And you can definitely make a little bit of the show about yourself sometimes. You know, you can add your own personality in, but like, don't make the whole thing about yourself, because a lot of the time people are here to watch the players. Sometimes talent are so big that sometimes they're here to watch the talent, but that's very rare. And so if you're coming in, you're obviously, no one gives a shit who you are as a new commentator a lot of the time. So you have to do justice to the play. That's the most important thing for me.
Well, that is it from this episode, everybody. And thank you very much for watching or listening. And I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been the first episode of its kind, with Dinko, of course, being our first guest. But if you guys have got other guests you want me to bring on the show that you'd like to listen to in regards to esports commentary, I'd love to hear them. So let me know in the comments below who you'd like to see. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned something new. And I'll see you again next time.